Here we have the 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQB 350 4MATIC. Now this is a compact, all-electric SUV, and it has a surprisingly nice interior, offers some great features, and I think this vehicle is just about the perfect size, neither too big nor too small. And on the surface, this SUV sounds like it's an ideal vehicle, but is it? Well, after a week of testing, I'm not so sure. So this SUV is basically an all-electric version of the conventional GLB. Both models ride on the same 111.3-inch wheelbase. They both have a handsome and fairly upright body with a surprising amount of glass. The front and rear overhangs are pretty short and the hood fairly long. So far, so good. Now, this EQB is also fitted with the optional $2,890 AMG Night Package, which, among other things, includes a different grille, as well as blacked-out mirror caps and black trim around the side glass. While we're up here, we can see LED headlamps that are joined by a light strip, something that is mirrored at the rear of this vehicle because, surprise, surprise, it also has LED taillights and another strip that connects them. Moving along the side of the vehicle, we can see we have 19-inch wheels that do fit the overall design quite nicely. Not everything has to have gigantic 22s, though these AMG branded wheels are a little bit busy for my take. What do you think? I would want something a little bit cleaner, personally. Moving along the side, we can get a better look at some of the blacked out trim here, which of course runs along the side glass. And on the passenger side rear fender is where we find the charging port, which opens like that and has some very nice hinged doors to help keep moisture out, although maybe it's not working so well in this case. I did rinse the car off this morning before we started shooting. Anyway, and moving to the rear of the vehicle, it is again very handsome. It looks like other Mercedes-Benz SUVs, which I think is a great thing because some of their products are extremely handsome. Opening the rear hatch, one way to do it is by pressing on the Mercedes-Benz star right here, and this is so satisfying to do. This action feels like it costs $1 million. It's really well engineered. And once that is open, we can see that we've got about 10.7 cubic feet of cargo space in this vehicle. Not a bad number, but if you do fold those second row backrests down, that number does increase to nearly 63 cubic feet of space, a surprising amount for what is a relatively small vehicle. What is also surprising is that the EQB is available with an optional third row seat. It's $1,250, and honestly, it's pretty much a kids-only zone. Mercedes-Benz says that passengers up to 5 feet 4 inches tall should be able to fit back there, but even that seems a little bit optimistic. So if you do get the third row seat, just remember it's probably best to just put kids back there because adults ain't gonna be happy. All versions of the EQB have a lithium-ion battery with 66.5 kilowatt hours of usable capacity, but unfortunately, that pack will only DC fast charge at up to 100 kilowatts, which is not very competitive these days, though it is still enough to get you from 10 to 80% in a manufacturer estimated 32 minutes. Now, currently there are 3 different versions of the EQB available. At the bottom, there is the EQB 250 Plus, which is front-wheel drive and has up to 245 miles of range. One step up the ladder is the EQB 300 4MATIC, which, as its name suggests, has all-wheel drive and up to 232 miles of range on a full charge. And then, of course, we have the EQB 350 4MATIC, which has just 220 miles of range, though it should be able to hit 60 miles per hour in about 6 seconds flat. Now, unfortunately, despite the relatively slippery and aerodynamic body and the fact that it comes standard with a heat pump in the HVAC system, the range estimates for this little SUV are not very compelling going into the 2024 model year. Despite its small size, the EQB still feels like a proper Mercedes-Benz. Now, this interior isn't particularly opulent, and it certainly does not have the automaker's latest and greatest technology, but the cabin is still exceptionally nice. Soft plastics abound. We have contrast color stitching that is laser beam straight. The controls all, for the most part, feel fantastic, as does much of the trim. As for tech, we've got a pair of 10.25-inch displays in this vehicle. Of course, there's a digital instrument cluster as well as a touch-enabled panel toward the center of the dashboard. And both of these look fantastic and seem to work very well. And of course, 10 1/4 is nothing to sneeze at. That's not tiny, but compared to what you get in more modern Mercedes-Benz vehicles, these do look pretty small, especially compared to that gargantuan dashboard-spanning hyperscreen. Now, the infotainment system, it's an older version, though it does work fairly well, and of course, it also supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, though make sure you bring a cable. Wireless technology is not supported, though that is coming for 2024 when the EQB does receive sort of a mid-cycle update. Really, just about everything in this cabin feels rock solid, though there are two exceptions. One of them is the wiper control / turn signal stalk. When you engage this, it's actually incredibly loud. Listen to this. It kind of resonates through the steering column and just makes a lot of noise. I've never really heard that on another vehicle before. And the other thing that doesn't feel all that great is when you're reaching to grab the seat belt, there's the plastic trim on the B-pillars. It is super hollow and cheap sounding. Listen to this. That's not great. But other than these two things, I'll tell you, everything else in this vehicle does feel very good. As for options, this particular vehicle has a few, including the $2,000 technology package, which gets you a number of things like a very nice head-up display. There's also a virtual assistant in the infotainment system. There's traffic sign recognition, and then you also get augmented video navigation, which takes a feed from the front-facing camera and then will display turn arrows on the navigation screen, so it's almost impossible to miss a turn when you're driving with the navigation system engaged. We also have the $1,300 driver assistance package that includes a whole bunch of features like automatic emergency braking, blind spot monitoring, lane keeping assist, and other stuff that should probably just be standard. Similarly, this vehicle is equipped with heated front seats, which for some reason cost $500 extra, though the good news is they are extremely effective. Some of the hottest heated seats I have ever experienced, and there's a real risk with these of roasting your giblets, so be careful. And then the last sort of big ticket options group we have is the $2,300 Pinnacle package that includes a Burmester premium sound system. There's a wireless charging pad for your phone, and then of course it also bundles an ever useful 360-degree camera array, which is always a good thing to have. As I alluded to, the EQB is getting refreshed for the 2024 model year. They're going to mildly tweak the exterior styling, improve the infotainment system. They're adding plug-and charge capability, which is fantastic. And then the vehicle will get a new steering wheel with some different touch controls, all welcome enhancements. And the 2024 EQB should start arriving at dealerships in the first half of next year. Passengers relegated to steerage are still well cared for here in the EQB. The back seat, as you can see, has a decent amount of legroom and headroom, plus the lower cushion is surprisingly elevated, which does give you a very nice view of the road ahead. These cushions, just like the front chairs, are surprisingly firm, so they should be very comfortable on long drives. And this back seat is also highly adjustable. Not only does it slide, but the backrests move as well, which is nice to have. And this backrest is 40-20-40 split, so you can drop the center section or either side down, which is very versatile when you're hauling cargo and or passengers. You can really mix and match to increase the versatility of this small SUV. Now, beyond the seat itself, of course, we have a fold-down armrest with a couple of cup holders that pop out just like that. We've got 2 air vents up here, and then this little drop-down panel has 2 USB Type-C ports as well as a 115-volt household outlet, so you can keep all of your devices charged. The EQB 350 4MATIC has 288 horsepower, a very respectable figure, and 384 pound-feet of torque, and these numbers deliver very good, if not quite amazing performance. This little SUV just surges off the line thanks to immediate and abundant low-speed torque, though it does start to feel a little bit winded at higher speeds, kind of like the EQE models I have recently tested. And of course, if you haven't checked those videos out yet, go and watch them when you're done here. Of course, this particular EQB has a 4MATIC all-wheel drive system, and under low loads, when you're just driving along like I'm doing right now, only the rear motor is powering the vehicle, and that's because it is of a more efficient permanent magnet design. The front dynamo is actually an induction motor, and they're not quite as efficient to run, so that's why the system works in that particular way. Now, whenever you need additional traction, when road conditions dictate you need more grip, the system will actually adjust torque fore and aft up to 100 times per second to provide the best driving experience possible. Like any modern vehicle, this Mercedes-Benz does offer a range of advanced driver assistance technologies. Now, not as many of them are standard as they probably should be at this price point, but what can you do about that? Anyway, regarding the lane keeping assist system, it is a little bit annoying because if you do cross the line, it's quite abrupt in applying the brakes on the opposite side of the vehicle to bring you back into the middle of your lane, so be aware of that. Same story with the emergency braking system. I found that it has actually applied itself in a couple situations where it wasn't needed, and again, quite abruptly, so be aware of that, and be aware that you can turn these off if you want to, and you may want to do just that. The EQB steering is very light to the touch, and it makes this vehicle seem quite nimble, though there is basically no road feel, which is not a surprise for a modern vehicle. As for the ride, it is quite firm, though surprisingly, when you go over some undulations in the pavement, the body sort of makes these exaggerated movements. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but the ride is definitely not as settled as I would like. It's certainly very refined, but it doesn't feel like it's on an even keel at all times. But other than all of that, the EQB's interior is very quiet, a shocker for an electric vehicle, I know. I also appreciate the upright windshield and relatively small roof pillars because they do provide very good outward visibility for a modern vehicle, though there is one thing that I absolutely hate, and it is the sun visors. I mean, they work well enough when you're driving into the sun, but they don't extend, so you can see all of the glass here that's still visible and ready to blind you if the sun is coming from the side. Not good. For a vehicle that costs as much as this one does, it needs to have extendable visors, so put them in there. But what about the price? Well, we'll get to that in just a minute after I recap this SUV's strengths and weaknesses. This is a relatively small vehicle, but as I mentioned, it still feels like a proper Mercedes-Benz. The EQB 350-4MATIC has some welcome advantages, including a surprisingly comfortable interior. The availability of a third-row seat, even if it's just for kids, is a nice touch. This SUV's refinement is exemplary. The interior is unexpectedly nice, and for the most part, everything about this SUV feels solid. As for downsides, well, these are kind of the EQB's undoing. Its DC fast charging performance is quite poor by today's standards. The limited range is similarly unimpressive. This SUV's performance isn't bad by any stretch, but it could be a touch better considering it has almost 400 pounds of torque on tap. And lastly, the price tag is quite steep. So, the front drive EQB 250 Plus starts at about $54,000, which is a totally reasonable sum, though at that level you are going to be giving up a lot of amenities and the performance probably isn't all that great. As for our EQB 350-4MATIC here, it checks out for $73,275, a price that includes a heap of options as well as $1,150 for delivery. Now that is a lot of money for what is a relatively small SUV, one with pretty limited range and relatively poor DC fast charging performance. While the EQB is legitimately nice, I mean, I like this vehicle more than I probably should. I'll be honest, there are better EVs out there, particularly Hyundai's eGMP-based models, but especially the Genesis GV60 if you are shopping in the luxury end of the market. But, of course, if range and charging performance don't really matter to you, this is a solid little SUV. Next up, check out my full review of the Mercedes-Benz EQE sedan by clicking right over here. This car delivers a tremendous luxury experience, but there are a couple things to look out for. I don't remember what they are, but I'm sure I hope they're in the video. So watch it or click here. It's over here.